Hello, everybody. What's going on? This is the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss here, of course, with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
Want to welcome you guys all this Sunday evening as the New York Yankees face elimination as we speak here, heading into Game 4 of the American League Championship Series. The Philadelphia Phillies advanced to the World Series earlier today, so congratulations to all our Philly area viewers and listeners. Although you're probably not watching now, you're probably getting hammered now, as is your right, so congratulations there. But we did want to...
All right. The fucking, like, my pet peeve, one of my things I hate most in the world, is the D train on a fucking Yankee game night. I got stuck with those fucking Yankee morons the other night, going uptown on the D, going home. Let's go, Yankee! Oh, God, I fucking hate that shit.
Well, they were probably there just about an hour ago, actually. Come to think of it,
yesterday.
It's 7 o'clock right now. The game is starting in just a minute. But we have a very special treat for you guys this evening. Yesterday at 4 p.m., Russell and I had the pleasure of interviewing Jose Vega and Kynan Thistlethwaite, who are more famously known as the activists who challenged AOC at her town hall, the anti-war activists who disrupted AOC's town hall meeting. And we got to interview them. We went for about 40 minutes, and we are going to debut that interview right now. So we still, of course, are doing a live stream show this evening. We're not bailing on you guys. But we are going to begin by playing that interview. That interview will last for about 40 minutes, so it won't be live. That'll be a pre-recorded portion. But you guys, you're welcome to ask questions and comment and feedback on the stream here, and we will be looking in on that while the interview is playing, so we'll take some questions or comments afterwards. But for now, I think we should just play the interview. It was really fun. These guys were very, very interesting dudes. I thought the interview came out good, Russell. What do you think?
I think it was pretty good. I think we're going to give AMC a run for their money. They're doing the interview with the vampire. We did the interview with the protesters from the LaRouche organization.
Right. Interview with LaRouche. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Alrighty, everybody. So we are going to...
I first began campaigning for president in 1792.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that would have been further back, right?
Yeah.
That would have been a while back. But, all right, guys, so here we are. We're going to play this interview. It's about 40 minutes. We will be back at the conclusion with the rest of the show. So, Russell, we just want to mute our microphones now, and then we'll turn them on before this ends.
All right.
All righty, guys, here's our interview with Jose Vega and Kynan Thistlethwaite, better known as the AOC protesters. We're excited about this. We hope you guys enjoy. You've become familiar with these guys, I'm sure, but in case you aren't, these are the protesters who disrupted the AOC town hall and have since gone viral. We are talking, of course, to Jose Vega and Kynan Thistlethwaite. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great to talk to you. You guys are some of the most famous guys we've ever spoken to now. Believe it or not.
Maybe
you guys are like the biggest celebs we've ever had. We just had Aaron Mate on a couple days ago. We thought that was a big catch. It's like now we got two real viral superstars. So it's great to meet you guys.
It doesn't last forever, you know. I keep telling Kynan, you know, it's like every time I think our 15 minutes are up, AOC just does something to bring it back to life, you know. Which I think we'll talk about later when she responds and her response to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, everybody has seen this clip so far, but I'm just going to play a little bit of your initial action, and then we will take it from there.
Woman, none of this matters unless there's a nuclear war, which you voted to send arms and weapons to Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard, she's left the Democratic Party because they're a bunch of war hawks. Okay? You originally voted, you ran as an outsider, yet you've been voting to start this war in Ukraine. You're voting to start a thermonuclear war with Russia and China. Why are you playing with the lives of American citizens? You're playing with our lives.
There will be no neighbors If there's a nuclear bomb, you voted to mobilize and send money to Ukrainian Nazis. You're a coward. You're a progressive socialist. Where are you against the war mobilization? He's telling the right truth. You have done nothing. Tulsi Gabbard has shown guts where you've shown cowardice. I believed in you, and you became the very thing you sought to fight against.
All right. So, like I said, people can see the whole video just about everywhere. Most of the people watching this have already seen it. AOC was asked about this, and she gave the following response. Somebody asked her on her Instagram chat, I suppose, could you speak on being confronted by anti-war protesters? She says, sure. They were actually not anti-war protesters. They were right-wing Trumpers, and some were LaRouche cult members, not progressives as they claimed. Their own social media history shows this. It was a stunt that they do from time to time. Last time they showed up to a town hall yelling about eating babies or something. It's a thing they do to go viral and draw in people. This time, they were parroting pro-Putin talking points. It is not anti-war to support Russia's imperialist project to invade and seize neighboring countries either. Ukraine, like other nations, has the right to self-determination. The only person instigating threats of nuclear weapons is Putin, no one else. As far as their comments about Tulsi Gabbard, Gabbard has voted for more defense budget increases than I ever have. 0, look it up. Happy to dig more into Ukraine in other posts. A lot of these right-wing video and social media stunts are predicated on people not knowing the context and just believing whatever the person is saying for face value. For example, in the video, they cut out the part where they waited to yell until a deaf constituent was trying to ask a question so it would look like everyone was mad at their words instead of the fact that they were harming a person with a disability. All right, before we ask you anything, I just want to give both of you guys the floor to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, on the cult accusation, all I'll say is this. I mean, if a dude in a neon robe and a giant afro descended from the heaven and said, listen, I got a plan to stop nuclear war, I would listen to him. I don't know what he's got to say, but I would listen to him first just to see what he's got to say. So that's that on that. And on being right-wing Trumpers, pro-Putin talking points, the only person inciting nuclear war is Putin. I would refer to Adam Kinzinger's comments earlier in the year saying we shouldn't rule out first strike nuclear policy in the case that there is a biochemical weapon attack from Russia. Kynan, you could go off from here, but that's my response.
Yeah, you notice, I love how, when you actually confront these people, they resort to smearing you rather than addressing what you actually said. Notice that she didn't say anything about her voting to fund this war in Ukraine and bringing us on the brink of thermonuclear war. She's not addressing those questions. And, on the last part, we were harming someone, a deaf person in the audience. It was actually an emailed question from a constituent who may or may not have been deaf. And she only announced that after we had intervened on her. So, yeah, you see how these people, redirect the question.
Yeah, right. She, the deaf constituent thing, I just want to be real clear on that because, The Hill had made this very clear, too. I think Brianna Joy Gray talked about it, but I do just want to make it clear. There wasn't a deaf constituent we didn't just steal the mic from or something, or we didn't speak over a deaf constituent, which, by the way, it's dark humor, but how would the deaf constituent know I started yelling or Kynan started yelling? They would just keep talking, I guess, until someone flagged them down. But no, they weren't there. It was an email, which I believe was pre-written before the town hall even started. And I keep pointing people to the live video that AOC herself did. She says, okay, we're now going to read an email that came in. And the question is, how do we make politics more accessible for people with disabilities? So,
okay, so she just straight out lied about there being a deaf constituent in the room. There's no way to really interpret that as an honest mistake, right? Yeah. You can't mistake that there was a deaf person being shouted over. So that to me, that's just such a disgusting misuse of concern for the disabled. to direct that as a weapon against you. That's really remarkable that she would do something like that. That she would say something like that.
We're ableist, apparently.
You're ableist. You're ableist. She just weaponized that against you. Now, I did campaign for AOC back in the day.
Oh no.
I did back in 2018.
Yeah.
There's a very I can't.
There he is.
Right there. So I really wish she had turned out to be what we thought she was at the time. Sure. She cried at the border with the children, and then she voted to fund ICE. So what is she talking about? She's funding these wars in Ukraine. She really didn't take on your points. Now, that having been said, you guys have been dragged so much in the media and by AOC. I want to ask you, do you feel in retrospect that you should have just left Tulsi out of it? Because even when we did a video about this, oh my God, all the Tulsi. We literally did a video talking about how Tulsi was beside the point, and we kept getting feedback about how bad Tulsi was. So do you feel in retrospect that was strategically a mistake?
Kynan's good on this, actually.
Yeah, I don't regret what we said about Tulsi, because it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't the main point of our remarks. I mean, the only reason we actually brought her up is because she did make the very courageous decision of actually leaving the Democratic Party, as she said, among other reasons, but because they're a party filled with war hawks. They're bringing us to the brink of thermonuclear war. And it's not like you have to agree with everything Tulsi says to agree with her on that point, you know? And she's probably one of the most prominent people actually bringing that issue to the forefront. And I think if we're actually going to build an anti-war coalition, because, I mean, let's face it, this is the most dangerous point that we've ever had in humanity, then we have to learn to get along with these kinds of people, I think. So, and I was surprised too. I was surprised how many anti-Tulsi people I had responding to me in the comments. It really took me by surprise, but it's not the main point of it. So, you know, don't be childish about it. Realize what she said, you know, and let's do something.
Yeah, I think people were like linking me things about her after the fact of what I did. I'm like, I don't know anything about that. I know what she just did. She just left the Democratic Party. She just did a whole thing on Joe Rogan talking about how close we are to nuclear war. You know, at this point, I don't care what she's voted on before. It doesn't matter what you believe right now. The honest, objective truth is that we are very close to nuclear war, closer than we were during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So, frankly, I don't care who the fuck. If Mike Pompeo, the worst person in the world, came out right now and said, you know what, I'm against nuclear war, I'd stand with him. And I hate the guy. Like, I abhor him so much. Or same thing with John Bolton, right? See, that's what matters. I want to hate this guy. I want to be around to hate this guy. Let me put it that way, right? I want to be around to shout at AOC, okay? I'm not trying to do that through a nuclear wasteland.
I mean, Henry Kissinger, one of the actual worst people in the world, talk some sense on this issue, right? What are you going to do? Throw that out? You know, and that was the point that I kept making, is that they're look, one of the videos that we made that blew up our channel to the extent that our channel has blown up. We're not as big as you guys yet, obviously. but
we're not big.
I know. I'm joking. I'm messing with you. And by the way, you guys don't have to mute your microphones between the talks either. You can keep them on the whole time. Fine. Yeah, there you go. But
they don't want to hear us to hear the LaRouche cult chanting in the background.
One of the videos that
yeah, sorry, we have a little human sacrifice.
Yeah, right.
Hang on. So for the record, you do not eat babies, because she was saying something about you eating babies.
Right.
What is this?
Is that no? Because I don't know if you remember this. 2 years ago at a town hall, AOC was confronted by a protest. I don't know, somebody who said, "Listen, you know, climate change is an issue. I feel very strongly about this. I'm afraid. I think we need to eat babies as a way to curb climate change."
I do remember. Oh my God! Now that you say this, it rings a bell.
That was us.
That was you.
That wasn't like me, but that was, you know,
that was the LaRouche organization.
That was the LaRouche organization. Yeah,
that was the think tank.
The think tank, yeah. I mean, that was, you know, one of our people who did that, you know, and shit was hilarious.
Okay. So basically, they were punking her to draw attention to an issue. Was that?
Well, I mean, the issue was that, the thing is, like, we just had a conference called, End Green Fascism. And what we mean by that is, like, we're not trying to argue about the legitimacy of climate change or not. That is a discussion that should be had. It's why is it the case that Western countries and, so-called developed countries have the right to tell underdeveloped countries how to build their economies? Because they say, well, you can't use oil and gas and petroleum because you're going to blow up the world if you do. So you have to stay poor. You have to stay malnourished. You can't have hospitals. What are you, crazy? More people on your stupid country? You're going to kill the whole world. So here's green energy. Now, the problem with green energy is that it doesn't provide the same requirements and the same energy density that you need to actually sustain a population and an economy. And so the point of us doing that was that we were bringing attention to the fact that it's just hysterical to say that to underdeveloped nations, your child has to die of malnutrition for the greater cause of climate change. And that's what we mean by green fascism. And that's why we did the thing on AOC. If she really cared, where are the nuclear proposals? Where's the nuclear fusion and fission, the nuclear fusion research and the nuclear fission plants? That stuff can be developed. You got molten salt reactors that can be built in like a few weeks in any country in the world. Anyway, they don't mean to rant, but...
No, that's okay. I mean, we were going to bring up the baby eating at some point, so I'm glad we'll reshuffle the order. We didn't want to miss that. We didn't want to gloss over that.
Yeah.
One thing we don't want to do is be accused of coddling the baby eaters. No.
We're not. I do have Jonathan Swift back here.
I'm glad you got the reference.
But look, one of the biggest videos that we did took issue with, a couple other YouTube hosts who use a sort of guilt by association tactic. So, okay, you guys mentioned that Tulsi Gabbard has courage on this one issue. Therefore, they would rather the people who want to discredit you do so by discrediting Tulsi Gabbard and then discredit you guys by extension. And I think that's just a cowardly chicken shit way to argue. I said, listen, I don't know who these guys are, meaning you. I don't know if they're fucking nuts. I don't care if I agree with them on anything. I don't care if they are a guy in neon hoodie coming down, like you just mentioned earlier. It doesn't matter. What matters is the merits of what they're saying in the video. And the merits of what you guys were saying in the video, I thought was spot on. And so, it doesn't really matter for purposes of that discussion whether I agree with you guys on really anything else. And there does seem to be just an unwillingness to address people on the merits because it's much easier to put, as Russell says, an ick factor on somebody. Oh, you guys said a nice thing about Tulsi. Tulsi is right wing for X, Y, and Z reason. Therefore, these guys aren't real progressives. Now, as far as I know, you guys have not claimed to be progressives or leftists, but I do want to address one thing that you said in the video. You said to AOC, we believed in you, right?
I didn't say we, I said I. I don't know.
Okay, sorry about that. You said, I believed in you. Now, you voted for Trump twice, is that right?
Yeah, I did. And
okay.
I'll address this right now.
No, that's fine. I'm not trying to shiv you on it. I'm just saying, I think people have a difficult time reconciling those two things because when you said I believed in you, I think a lot of people thought that you were perhaps posing as a sort of disaffected AOC stan like Russell is. And that I think people thought that you sort of misrepresented yourself in that way. So do you want to take the opportunity to sort of clear that up a little bit? What did you mean by that?
Yeah, and actually, somebody I respect, Katie Halpert, she brought the same thing up because she thought that Kynan and I were posing as progressives. You're right. I never said I was a progressive leftist, right? I'm not right wing, left wing, this or that, but I did believe in AOC because I'm from the South Bronx, right? I have, I've suffered through like roaches, rats, terrible landlords, public housing, right? I'm from here. This is where I'm from. And at the time, in 2018, when she had just won her primary, right? And this is now August, I was dealing with this issue where my apartment was literally collapsing. I lived in a basement apartment, and the ceiling was like, it was bubbling up with all this sewage water. And crashing down, right? I went to my
that is for those of you not from New York, that is some classic New York shit. Literally what he's describing. Literally.
I went to my councilman, Fernando Cabrera. Okay, and he was good at first. He got HPD there, quickly, rather than the 3 days they said they'd get there. They got there like in a few hours.
It was a legal basement? Was it legal?
No, it wasn't legal. It was an illegal basement.
You know, man, you took a chance. Department of Buildings can tell you to leave right now.
I was like, so I don't know. What was I, 20 at the time? I was living with my mother and my grandfather. I still do. And like my mom at the time didn't speak that much English, right? So I was the one standing up for us. And then the councilman says, well, guess what? What if it were the case that somebody came to you with like $15,000 and you just don't sue the landlord? I was like, what are you talking about? He said, or how about you just like remodel the apartment and then sublease it and then make like a tiny $50 profit? What? Why would I subject someone else to the same conditions that I've been subjected to? So AOC won her primary at the time. She's talking shit about doing this and that. Yeah, I reached out to her, and yeah, I did believe in her because I thought she was the hope that the Bronx needed. Yeah, she wasn't my district. That was more Asanya. She's up in like by Pelham and stuff. But you know what? I thought she cared about people. And, at the time, even when she didn't respond, I still believed in her. I was like, you know what? Maybe she's busy campaigning, whatever. And all these votes that she's done in the Congress, voting for the Iron Dome, or I guess she cried about it, and then voting to fund ICE and the police and Israel, and now, nuclear war. It's like, yeah, of course. And then just on the Trump thing, I came down to the voting of lesser of two evils. I mean, Hillary Clinton's a fucking witch. Excuse my language. Okay. And then Donald Trump, I didn't know what I was going to get with Donald Trump, but I knew I didn't want what Hillary had. And then Biden, I had already known about the whole Ukrainian Nazi thing. There's photos of him shaking hands with Oleg Tyanibak, who's the founder of the Svoboda Party in Ukraine. I wasn't going to vote for that fucking guy either. So, now I have a different philosophy, which is I'm going to vote for the person who I think should be in office, no matter whatever their chance of winning presidency is. Whether they're like a no-name nobody who nobody knows is on the ballot, or if it's like the most popular person there. If I think they should be there, that's who I'm going to vote for. Anyway, I'm talking too much. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I thought that was a thorough and fair answer. Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know, Kynan, if you ever were folk progressive or...
No, I never claimed to be in that video. I'm only 20, and I was 16 when AOC was running. So, I was never really involved in anything at that time. But, just on this question that you have to be a leftist, quote unquote, you have to have leftist views to be counted for anything. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ben Norton. He had recently, smeared us because, anyone who doesn't have his view on politics doesn't amount to anything. And that's just completely ridiculous, So, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're a leftist, right wing, whatever you identify yourself as. If you come out with this view, if you care about your family, if you care about your children, grandchildren having a future, well, then you should probably stand up and raise your voice against the war.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. And one of the main thrusts of our show is that yes, we are on the left, but what leftists need to understand is that the left is losing right now. The left is eating shit right now. There aren't enough leftists right now to accomplish the kinds of things that they want to. And so what you're going to have to do is broaden the coalition and have conversations with people like you guys who maybe don't consider yourselves leftists ideologically. But you know what? 2018, Jose, you're in a spot where AOC comes and starts speaking to your material concerns, and you invest in her because of that. Whether you're on the left or not, whether you're a socialist or not. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? The left right now is not in a position to be nitpicky about labels, right? Beggars can't be choosers, the old saying, right? And so the signaling that came from people was that you guys were not a member of our team.
So you don't have to be listened to.
I almost forgot the guy's name. Bhaskar Sankara, the head of Jacobin. Very, very disappointing. He retweeted AOC's Instagram post that we just said and said, good job by AOC calling out the fact that these guys aren't on the left. I'm sorry, man. We've interviewed a bunch of Jacobin writers on our show. I think they've done some really good work. Everybody I've talked to over there has been cool. But what the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, seriously, what the fuck is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? I know you have a magazine that gets good circulation for an indie magazine. That's not winning power. That's not changing the world. Your fucking magazine is not it. You're going to have to open your ears a little bit to people who, like, I mean, we've said this a million times right now. Look at what the stakes are here. And these guys are saying the right thing on this issue. Put your concern about Tulsi Gabbard or LaRouche or Trump or everything else. Just take their points on the merits, but people don't want to do that. They do not want to do that.
Yeah, no, of course. And I mean, like, it's you know, somebody said this, and I love saying this. It's like, sorry, you're not cool enough to be anti-nuclear war, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, sorry about that.
Well, I mean, that's my experience, unfortunately, with the whole liberal class across the board. If you disagree with them, they go straight to character assassination. And it doesn't really matter what it is. If you argue with them for long enough, they will, if they have to do a triple somersault into a glass of water to call you an ist or a phobe based on 3 syllables in a 15,000 word essay, they will do it rather than to engage you on the substance of your argument.
No, of course. And I mean, I think the way to just kind of like get around that is other people need to do it. Like, listen, I like the attention, you know, but at the same time, like, it's not about me or Kynan, and I could also kind of care less about the attention. I want other people, and I think Kynan agrees with me here. Other people just need to stand up right now. And I think the reason why we're being dragged through the mud is to kind of show, like, hey, we're gonna do the same thing to you if you stand up like these idiots here. But you know what I say? I don't care. Just if more people do it, they're not going to scrutinize everybody. They can't scrutinize 200 people standing up. Maybe they can. They could try.
Well, I mean, look, I would actually challenge you on that. They did scrutinize everybody who voted for Donald Trump, even after he beat them, right? Like, even after they lost, and they'll say Hillary won the popular vote. Okay, fine, whatever. You know, that and $8 will get you a popcorn and soda at the movies, right? But, like, they lost. They lost a national election to Trump, and their response was to smear everyone who voted for Donald Trump. Like, it doesn't really matter. They'll do this on any scale because that's the nature of what they're doing. They are creating it. Look, the Democratic Party is more a social club than it is a political party at this point, right? It's a clique. You're either or you're out.
It's a social club. Their newsletter is the New York Times.
Exactly. Win or lose. Lose.
My response to that is I think there needs to be a third force. I don't necessarily believe in parties per se, because you can have independent candidates who are unaffiliated with any party. And I think that's that's what Kynan and I are working on right now with Diane Sayre. I mean, I'm sure you saw my Twitter handle. It says vote Diane Sayre.
Sure.
She's a candidate running for U.S. Senate against Chucky Schumer here in New York, right? And the only reason we put LaRouche candidate on the ballot is because you need to have a name. Otherwise, we would have just ran her independent, right? And now they're not letting her even debate. I don't know if you guys ever done like signature collecting to get candidates on ballots and stuff.
I did that for AOC.
AOC, right? Yeah. Okay, so for like independents in New York, they Cuomo, before he left, raised the signature requirements for independents. So it's 15,000.
Well, that sounds like him. Yeah.
15,000 signatures required to be a statewide candidate, right? Just like Democrat or Republican. But if you're an independent, you need 45,000 signatures in 6 weeks. Okay. So we don't have the same money as the parties do. We don't got the same resources they do, the same connections they do, the same crooked tactics they do. And we got to do 3 times the work. Okay. In a 6-week period. And you know what? We did it. We got 66,000 signatures, and we were spot on, okay? Diane should be on the debate, okay? That's happening on what is it, October 30th with Spectrum? Is that right, Kynan? Yeah, okay? And they don't want her on the debate. And I know people have been complaining all the time about, you know, every third independent candidate always complains about never being on the major debates. But you know what? I'm here to stand up for every candidate, whether it's my candidate or it's Jeff Young over in Kentucky, who's like a cool guy, but it's also somebody I like disagree with vehemently on a lot of things. He's standing with the nuclear war. against the nuclear war. Excuse me. There's other candidates right now who are being denied the ability to debate, who've met the requirements to be on the ballot, and that's another reason why I think that, like, if you want to be anti-war and anti-nuclear war, getting Diane Sare on the debate stage would be a big blow to the people like Chuck Schumer, who are the ones facilitating nuclear war right now, because she would just call them out on it. She would just straight up say, listen, none of this matters. Policy, economics, you're throwing us into World War III right now.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing I just to undergird that point is that, I mean, we're not exaggerating here. Like, it was just leaked out that Biden's own team says we're at about 10 to 20% chance of nuclear war.
And Leon Panetta said 20 to 25.
Yeah,
and he's certainly not an anti-establishment firebrand.
20 to 25. Now, we're New York guys here. Giancarlo Stanton, one of the best hitters in baseball, plays for the New York Yankees. He's one of the best offensive players in baseball. His batting average is .221, which means he gets a base hit 22% of the time, which means you averaged a 20 to 25% chance of nuclear war. There's about the same chance of nuclear war now as there is of Giancarlo Stanton getting a base hit when he steps up to the plate. All right? How many people think we're exaggerating now that I put it that way? All right.
Yeah, that's I don't know baseball. Kynan knows baseball. Kynan's a Mets fan.
All right, well, what do you think? Oh, well, I'm sorry to tell you. Well, I mean, for you, the world's already ended. So,
You'll appreciate my pain. But one of the worst New York experiences for me, I live in Harlem. I had to ride that fucking D train with those Yankee people today.
Oh, yeah.
They were all on the way uptown to the stadium.
That's right. The game's starting at 5 tonight, so it's almost on.
God.
As
Let's go. Oh, God. Fucking hate that shit. As soon as I saw them with the jerseys, I was like, oh, fuck.
Oh, man.
Day. Oh,
yeah. Well, do we have anything else, Russell? Do you have anything else for these guys?
Yes. Okay. Now, look, we're political junkies. I don't know about Keaton. I remember seeing the LaRouche guys on my college campus, every now and then. It's been a while, maybe because he died, but
I remember the Al Franken bit on SNL.
Al Franken used to do a bit. I don't think most people even know what that means. What does that mean? What does it mean to you? You are involved in a LaRouche organization, correct? Yeah, that's not just something that's
no. I got to exonerate LaRouche. Kind of go ahead.
All right. So what does that mean to you?
Why don't you go
first? Let me
refer
to my handlers first and see.
Jose, you should go first. And
do you have any reptilian humanoids there with you?
If you start speaking in tongues, we're not going to be able to translate it, just so you know. I can't close caption it. I don't know.
I happen to have David Icke's right here.
Yeah.
What that means to me, first of all, I never spoke to Lynn. Actually, no, that's not true. I think it was in like 2015. I was on a phone call. It was like they do these Thursday night calls, right? Where it's like they do a briefing of like the geostrategic situation of the world, right? What's going on. And then there's a Q&A, right? And in 2014 or 2015, Lynn was on one of these, and then I asked Lynn. This was when I was first coming around. I was like, "How do you know? What do you mean when you say the British? What does it mean to say the British, the British, the British?" And the guy just absolutely smoked me. And I felt so embarrassed, and I was like, "Damn, all right. I guess this guy kind of knows what he's talking about." But and I was 15 or 16 at the time. But what it means to me is this. I come from where I come from. I'm in New York City as a whole. It's a fucking shithole. It's not just the South Bronx, right? And I see people who are living in squalor and poverty. And, Khalif Browder went to jail wrongly. He should not have been there. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the case of Khalif Browder.
I am not.
I'm not.
Okay, basically, he's from the Bronx, too. He was accused of stealing a purse or something, or a backpack or something, and he went to Rikers Island for 3 years, and then he was never convicted of anything.
Oh, I do.
It rings a bell now that you're.
And then after he comes out, he's proven innocent, right?
Right.
There's a whole documentary on him. He kills himself. Okay, after coming out of Rikers Island, right? Why? What the fuck was that about? Okay, that he felt that coming out of prison, he had no hope. Okay, he was just disillusioned with life and reality. You know why? Because honestly, the conditions of the country are deteriorating to a point where there is no hope for anything or anyone. And so being a part of this movement tells me that to be human, there is a dignity to it, that there is a beauty to it. There is a meaning to life. And so one of the ways that has materialized itself is through this program that I promote called the Space CCC. Back in the 1930s, Roosevelt had this idea of a civilian conservation corps. You need to modernize that right now, because all these young people who are running around, who are into whatever the hell they're into, need somewhere to go where they can become engineers, construction workers, maybe even emergency nurses to deal with the fact that we have a health system that couldn't deal with a pandemic. You need people to then take the skills they learn in the CCC, go back to their neighborhood, build up the hospitals they need, build up the schools they need, build the infrastructure and housing that is needed, and you pay them as they're getting this training. You pay them and their family because it's a federal program and it's investment on them, and you require them for 2 years after the program to work for you, the government, so that they can go around the country building the infrastructure that's needed, and you got to base it here in the Bronx, and you will revolutionize the country in about 2 to 4 years. Because then you will see maglev trains appear out of nowhere. You will see hospitals be built when they were shutting them down. You will see housing be built, so nobody will be homeless anymore. And you will have a renaissance of new generations of young people coming out with hope, who are happy to wake up and say, damn, man, I'm glad I can use my mind and my skills, okay, to serve not me, not my neighbors, but to the people who will be born 50 years after I'm dead, 5,000 years. How many babies will be born in a hospital this guy constructed, okay, long after he's dead? And how many of those babies will be educated in a school he built long after he's dead? So, you know, the meaning of life no longer has any meaning in the present, but only in posterity. And that's what the hell this country was founded on, for posterity. And that's what being a part of this movement means to me, that I can make life better for people who come after me.
Can I add to that?
Okay,
I'd like to.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Like I said, when I first started coming around the LaRouche movement, I had never been politically involved in anything. I didn't know anything about it. But my background, they were actually doing a summer program in New York City, and it was focused on culture. We were singing in a chorus, and it was also on science. So that's how they recruited. That's, how I was recruited. And, their emphasis was always, human beings are inherently creative. You have to bring that potential out by getting them to discover ideas in geometry, in science. We worked on, figures like Johannes Kepler. We're always taught that, the sun is at the center of the solar system, but then we really don't get a chance, I think, to actually discover why that is, to discover the causes. And I had done a lot of work in that, and that's what gravitated me towards them. It's, it seems irrelevant, but, what are their actual policies? What are we fighting for? And I'll give you one example, which is what Helga, Lynn's wife, Lynn passed away about 3 years ago, but Helga's continuing his life mission and work. And she's focused on saying that, listen, if you want to stop this war drive, we need to actually build a new security architecture for the entire world. All nations need to be put on an equal footing. That doesn't mean that the United States, they're the greatest power of the world, that Britain's the greatest power. No, we need to focus on Africa. We need to focus on South America. We need to focus on their development, And Lynn always focused his life on that. He traveled extensively throughout the world and built concrete programs on how to develop these countries, And that's what we need to do today. Why are we fighting one another when we can focus our resources on actually eliminating poverty, on building modern healthcare systems in the world, on giving people economic development? And I think you see that's what a lot of nations are actually gravitating towards. They don't want to be on the side of the West. They don't want to support these sanctions, which are now destroying their means to live. So that's what we got to focus on, The new name for peace is economic development, as Helga constantly says. And that's what gravitated me towards this movement. I think it's the right idea. I wasn't around for the smears, whatever they may say about Lynn. But that's what I see. I agree with it, and that's why I continue to be with this movement.
So what's fascinating to me about both of those answers is that there's a lot of what you guys just said that if it weren't attached to a brand, i.e. the LaRouche brand, so many leftists and socialists and AOC types would find common ground with you. But we never get to that point in the conversation because cowards like this just want to put a one-off smear out there. Oh, they're Trumpers. Therefore, it doesn't matter. Nothing they have to say matters. Right? You can't get to a point
cultists.
Right. You can't get to a point in the conversation where we just got if you just shut someone out right away. And that's what AOC is doing. It's what so much of the left is doing now. It's what the Democratic Party has done for decades, really. But since Trump, that's gone into overdrive. And now AOC is parroting that same line here. And there's just not a willingness to engage. So many people, I mean, I don't want to get into a tangent about Joe Rogan, but people assume Joe Rogan is like an Alex Jones type, right? They just assume that when, without ever hearing Joe Rogan, they just hear about certain ideas of his, and they're shocked that when they listen to him, he's this like mild-mannered, nice, kind of quiet guy, because there's just not a willingness to engage. There's not a curiosity there. And so we're not going to litigate the details of what it means to be a LaRoucher. We don't have time, and frankly, I don't have the interest in it. I didn't think it was really relevant to the points that you guys were making at that town hall. Now that we sort of prodded you a little bit, like I said, in no way are we ready to make an endorsement of the LaRouche movement, but that's not the point. The point is you hear somebody out. Hear somebody out. Give them a chance to explain themselves, and they'll say things that are perhaps surprising, perhaps enlightening. And that's how you forge coalitions, or at the very least have conversations where there is the potential to do that. There's no potential to do that when you do what AOC does. Well, he voted for Trump twice, therefore, who cares? He's not anti-war. That's just ridiculous. That's just
well. Now, actually, I made when we did the video on it. That's what I said. There's really no contradiction between somebody supporting the AOC we thought we were getting and voting for Donald Trump twice in light of the alternatives. Like if anti-war is really your thing, that's a completely consistent position.
Which it obviously was, because you're claiming that one of the main reasons why you voted for Trump in 2020 was because of Biden's ties to these elements in Ukraine that you thought could get us into a situation that we are in now.
Yeah, Kynan and I made a video about it actually in November of 2020 talking about, listen, these are the ties that Biden has to Ukraine. And it wasn't just like the whole Hunter Biden thing. It wasn't that. It was, I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but it was the fact that he's shaking hands with the guy who started one of the racist parties in Ukraine, the Svoboda political party, and its offshoot, the C14 youth group. But yeah, I don't really have anything other to say other than Keaton. You say you're not going to endorse us, but watch, you're going to be singing Bach and Beethoven real soon. You're going to be reciting Shakespeare and poetry. You're going to be reading, So You Wish to Learn Economics by Lynn. Watch.
All right. Well,
yeah, Keaton, I just want to.
I don't get those references, but I don't see what they have to. But we'll see.
You will though. You will get them. That's my point.
All right. Well, if I wake up in the middle of the night acting strange, I'll send you a DM. Say, what the hell did you do to me?
Keaton, I just want to fully endorse what you said about actually talking to people that you really don't know about and getting to know what their views are. I think everyone should be doing that now because, as Jose touched upon with this issue with elections in New York, how they're increasing the signature requirement, how they're not allowing candidates to be on the debate. There is no democracy anymore. There is no more discourse in the country. And that's exactly what we need today. And I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys taking the time. That's all we got, Russell, right?
Yeah. I think it's very interesting because this is a point people often make about the LaRouche movement, that you can't pin it down ideologically, in keeping with what we were saying. I think a lot of this fighting, honestly, I always think of Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message. Right. Social media, the message is fighting. That's the message, because that's what the algorithm does. The algorithm, it's in theory, social media and the internet opened up the world to people, and no longer are you getting your information from one source. In practice, because of the way the algorithms work, it actually put people more in a bubble than ever before. Because when there was one source, they kind of had to try to speak to everybody. But now they can a la carte information to each literally individual person. And I think that's a big part of why people are not willing to speak to each other anymore, because their brains are constantly pickled in opinions that appeal to their lizard brain. And that's it. And you're the enemy. And then they just don't want to talk to you at that point. Not
Hey,
that
you know what's funny about the lizard brain thing? I know that's like referenced a lot in like, anthropology and the evolution of man. David Icke was real big on that stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know.
That's what we call in the business a callback.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We came full circle. But yeah, that's all. That's what I was thinking of when we were talking about how nobody wants to talk to anybody anymore. I think in some respects, you can't really blame people, man. They've been brain damaged by technology of communication of this era. I have said it many times on the show. Yes, man, we wouldn't have this show if it wasn't for the internet, but the internet is a net loss for humanity. What it has done to people intellectually, psychologically, spiritually, the juice has not been worth the squeeze. In the end, it's hurt us more than it's helped us, I think.
And he's old enough to know.
I am. Yeah.
This was fun, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. It was great to meet you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, guys.
You gotta unmute your mic, my friend. I've had that song stuck in my head. I've had Beethoven stuck in my head since last night. I don't know what it is. I keep singing.
Oh my God, the LaRouche guys were right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Eine kleine Gotter Funken Tochter aus Elysium. Oh my God, it's coming out of
the
me.
The winter
now.
Of our discontent.
Yeah. We few. We happy few. And whoever shall fight with me today shall be my brother.
Yeah, see, it's working. I don't know what they did, but
I don't know, man. We got the St. Crispin's Day speech. We got everything.
Yeah, so people seem to enjoy that interview. I think it came out really good. I think those guys were very smart. In all seriousness, they did not seem cult-like to me. They seemed to be very independent thinkers. They seemed really in control of what they were saying. They seemed to have very original thoughts. And I thought their answers were very fair. The one question I was eager to ask them was the about the "I believe in you" line, because that was really, Cenk Uygur zeroed in on that, and everybody used that to zero in on the idea that they were imposters. And right. I thought his answer was fair. Look, it's the same answer that a lot of people will give to why they support certain candidates. That's why Bernie had such massive crossover appeal, because there were people who were maybe ideologically opposed to socialist doctrine or dogma. But, it's one thing to be a capitalist. It's another thing to be a capitalist with 30 grand worth of medical debt. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Interests trump ideology, right? And so I thought Jose's answer was perfectly fair there. And I thought they were very, very fair-minded guys. And when you look at an interview like that, you think first of all, just what a disgrace to just smear them like that, especially using the whole deaf constituent lie. But what a wasted opportunity.
She just lied. How can you really trust her after that? Because it's incontrovertible that she lied, just straight out lied. So how can you take her
if there was no deaf
seriously
constituent there, then right.
It's just a lie. There is no way to spin that as a misunderstanding. She literally went on Instagram and lied to her followers. and lied to her constituents. At that point, how do you trust her? How do you trust anything that she says in the future? And it's not the first time.
No, of course not. It's also just a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity to engage with people like that. Like, there's no reason why people like that, should be shunned or set aside or dismissed. I mean, it was a great talk.
Of course not. I mean, especially, look, if we had real leaders, and I know we're going to be getting into this, the Tulsi thing and the, the whole nuclear war thing. It's terrifying who we have, because everyone keeps bringing up the Cuban Missile Crisis. Joe Biden ain't no Kennedy. And frankly,
right. Yeah, exactly.
And frankly, Putin ain't no Khrushchev.
Right.
Our leaders are of such lower quality, of such lower intellectual and moral fiber. That is what is so dangerous. You sit there and you listen to Kennedy's speeches that they're replaying now. Joe Biden's not an echo of a shadow of a whisper of Kennedy. And he wasn't the greatest president we ever had, but the standards are so much lower now. Can you imagine if someone like Joe Biden ran for president in 1960? They would have laughed at him. They would say, buddy, the bathroom's that way. You trying to
Right.
you're trying to get on the debate stage? Is there somebody here for you? Do you have a nurse here or something? Can somebody take you home? Did you get lost? That's part of what's so terrifying about it. So you got a couple of young guys here who are curious and engaged. Okay, so say you disagree with them.
And by the way, fucking smart. The one guy was 20. Jose was what, 24? 20 and 24. The two of them. Yep.
So, yeah, right there, if you were a real leader, you would have engaged with them. They're young guys. If she were a real leader, she would have asked, well, why do you feel that way? For one thing, her position is indefensible for her ideological lane. In her lane, she can't really defend voting for every single one of these packages. At best, you could go with what Kyle was saying. Well, yeah, I would have voted for the first two. Yeah, there's enough wiggle room there. All of them, right down to now, so that you're to the right of a lot of Republicans on this issue now? You can't justify that. So she couldn't talk to them. She couldn't justify her position. She couldn't really engage them. I mean, remember, this is the person whose response to Roe was to put out a resistance manicure video. So, I hate to say it, but you've had a lot of very unfair criticism of her from the right wing, absolutely, but not all of it's unfair, and it's not completely unfair, because you got to be some kind of ding dong to respond to Roe by talking about how you're going to get a resistance manicure. And that's exactly what that video was. She was talking about her defiant manicure as a statement against the patriarchy. Come on, man. She is an Instagram star. We try to elect a new generation progressive. A lot of us were looking to her to be the successor to the Sanders movement, to pass the torch to her. Really, we were looking to her. And I'm not blaming her for not being able to live up to that. That's a tall order. Those are some big shoes to fill. But she wound up just being like, I hate, as somebody who campaigned for her, I hate to see the people who said she's going to be Pelosi in 20 years turn out to be right, because that's how it looks now. That she's kind of Pelosi. She's going to be Pelosi 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, what she has in common with libs like that is just a lack of curiosity about other people's views. I mean, I understand you're a member of government, so there are some stakes in terms of who you engage and who you don't, because, you're on camera and you don't want to be caught saying the wrong thing on camera that could turn into an attack ad against you, blah, blah, blah. So it's not quite the same as an example that I'm going to give now. But I remember when Hitchens was given a talk, and he had a 9/11 truther stand and take the mic and started screaming crazy shit. And, Hitchens was a neocon in his later years. So you could imagine how repulsed he was by that. So he made a couple of hitch slaps. He got a couple of digs in on the guy. But after that, after they had a couple back and forths, he calmed down a second. He said, listen, I'm going to go outside and have a smoke or two after the talk before we leave. Come meet me over there and we'll talk. I'll hear you out. I'm not going to hear you out in front of a whole room screaming the 9/11 shit, but find me aside after and I'll hear you out. That's a curious mind. That's a mind who, even if he doesn't agree with anything this guy's going to say, even if he thinks the guy's a total wacko, you have to have a certain curiosity. You have to have a certain curiosity. And I refuse to believe that AOC, given her background, given the cloth from which she is cut, I refuse to believe that in her heart of hearts, she doesn't know those guys are right. You know what I mean?
I agree. Increasingly, it's looking like she just doesn't care, though. Right. So exactly. Somebody on the chat here said it's the birth of the influencer politician, and that's exactly what it is. And you know what? I wouldn't mind that if she were using it the right way. But it seems like it's just the Instagram superstar part of it, but she's not actually leveraging that to do anything.
Right. Like, I never begrudged her any of that if she brought the other element to it. Because you don't want her to be obscure.
Times have
you don't want her to be unknown, right?
Sure.
So whatever. If you got
use the medium, use the technology.
Right.
Exactly. But no, all she's doing is packaging and marketing herself. It's all the negative connotations of being an influencer with no payoff. What has she accomplished? What has she done? I wouldn't blame her for not getting legislation passed if she were actually taking stands on issues that were causing that. But it's the worst of both worlds. She's pissed them off too much to have any committee assignments, but she's far too compromised to be a voice of reason and truth in this moment. So what good are you? What are you there for? We might as well have an Amy Klobuchar type in that seat. At least they'd actually listen to her.
All right. I want to address this question from Bill Bradley because it is a good question, and I do have an answer. So I want to hear you out on this. He says, her background, you mean being from a wealthy family that moved to put her in a good school district? What do you think AOC's background is? It's true she did spend much of her youth in Yorktown Heights, despite claiming to be this Bronx girl. And I'm not even talking about her class background as much as like her political upbringing and where her politics came from. What made her decide to run a grassroots campaign against a corporate Democrat? Anti-war politics are really inseparable from the her brand of socialism and socialist politics, just as they are from Sanders, right? I mean, if you are of the Bernie movement, then surely you have an understanding that what's going on here is just suicidally insane. Whatever wherever you grew up, I think where she comes from ideologically transcends that. I cannot believe that she doesn't know that those guys had a point.
Bernie's not speaking out either. So that's where I don't.
Well, that's what I mean.
That's where I don't want to single her out. Like where's Bernie? Tulsi. We're going to talk about it in her first episode of her podcast. She talked about that. Where are these people? Where are they? Where's the squad? Where's Bernie? Where are all of these people? Because the only people who voted against these Ukraine packages were what? 63 Republicans?
68. So that was okay. So let's get into this segment since we're going to start referencing this now. All right. So Tulsi Gabbard's new podcast, The Tulsi Gabbard Show, which debuted with the sort of full version of her Dem Exit mini speech that she put out on her social media, right? So episode 1 was like a half an hour monologue about all the reasons she is no longer a Democrat. And the first, I shouldn't say the first, but a good half of that episode was all just right-wing culture war shit, from the Second Amendment to the gender ideology to the, they hate God now, they hate religious people, to the anti-white racism. There was a ton of that. But a good third of it was devoted to their persistent warmongering. And episode 2 that she put out was a full hour. It was a fantastic episode all about the Russia-Ukraine war and the nuclear threat. She had Jeffrey Sachs on, who has been very, very strong on this issue. And it was a wonderful episode. There were no like particular hot takes or hot moments, so we don't have a juicy soundbite to play. But Sachs is a really smart guy, and he just very soberly, calmly, and very, very clearly laid out the recent history leading up to this Russia-Ukraine war. And it was extremely informative. And I would recommend it highly to anyone who you're still arguing with about this issue, because Sachs and Tulsi both lay it out very, very plainly, right? It's a little dry, but it's dry in a good way because people need to hear this information. And so that's episode 2 of the show. Episode 2 of the show is all about the Russia-Ukraine war. She talks about her experience in Hawaii when a nuclear threat came over the cell phone accidentally. People might recall that. That was in 2018, where people on those islands got a text alert. Missile incoming, seek immediate shelter. And she told stories of a guy who put his kid down a manhole and said, I hope I see you again. Don't come out no matter what. Just very personally laying out, like, there's no place to hide when this goes down. No one is safe when this goes down. You're talking about unknowable horror here.
Well, she made the point the politicians will be safe. I used to date back in the day. I'm not making this up. I dated a Kennedy, and her father was in government, man, and she talked about how, like, yeah, he had a place to go. Like if the nukes flew, like there was a plan to evacuate them. They'll be fine. They're going to do the whole beneath the planet of the apes thing. They're going to repopulate down there.
Right.
Yeah. We'll all get fried.
Yeah, no, but she talked about this. I thought she did a really, really good job. I thought it was a wonderful episode, and I recommend that people listen to it. I think it's important that people hear this. And her podcast debuted at number 3 on the Spotify Society and Culture chart. Number 11 on the Apple Podcast Society and Culture chart, which is pretty impressive given, we follow this because we are podcasters. But the Apple charts are major shit lib charts. Like number 1 and 2 on Apple Podcasts is always the New York Times podcast. Always.
Right.
Yeah. And then NPR is up there. So the fact that she almost cracked the top 10 on Apple is a significant sign as well. But it just shows you, for people who want to take this tack against Tulsi, how, look, here's the soundbite that we're gonna use for this segment. And Russell said this to me earlier. Tulsi really is a MAGA communist. That's really what she is.
She is. She's out ahead of the third Vanguard roommate there,
Right,
Jackson
exactly.
Hinkle. She was a MAGA communist before there was a term for it. I watched that entire podcast, heard the one about nuclear war. And okay, so you don't like Tulsi? I don't like certain things about her. I don't like certain. I think she's been very flaky about Medicare for all. She was for the drone war. She does have this background, this family background of being from this very kind of extremist Hindu sect. It's hard not to draw a connection between that and her support for the war on terror. While at the same time, it seems like her issue is really with regime change wars and boots on the ground, but she was very much for drone wars. At the same time, okay, so show me somebody else who is articulating such a clear, consistent, forceful anti-war message. Show me somebody. Show me. Is it AOC? I'll watch that. Where is that speech? Is it Cori Bush? Ayanna Presley? Ilhan Omar? Rashida Tlaib? Where are they? I don't see any of these people doing what she's doing. She is the only really strong, consistent anti-war voice out there virtually. So, you're going to bring up other things you don't agree with her on. It's going back to the AOC thing. It's really beside the point. And in terms of where she is ideologically, she's where the country is. That's
Yeah.
where she
No,
is.
she is.
She is where the country is, and
That's why she's number 3 on the charts, on the Spotify charts, and almost cracked top 10 on shit lib Apple charts.
And we're gonna get into this. This will segue into our other segment, but this is why the libs never see their crushing defeats coming. Yes, Corey. Okay.
Don't hold on. Don't respond to that yet, because I want to make a contest out of this. People put in the chat. I want everybody to guess, because John Small says Cori Bush got a book deal. Guess how many books Cori Bush sold nationwide in her first week. No Googling. No cheating. Take a few minutes. People, put your numbers in the chat, and we will respond to that in a few minutes. All right.
They're going to Google it.
Yeah, well, listen, honor system, all right? Don't Google it. Guess. All right? Captain Obvious had a guess. Manso West had a non-serious guess. She bought a few. 19. We have John Small says 0. She Nebraskan, 35. I texted you the article, right, Russell? So we'll do it now that we have everybody here. God, I text you a lot, man. I'm like a needy girlfriend to you. I'm trying to find the text message that I sent. Jesus Christ, I send you all these texts. All right. 10 seconds. 10. Everybody get those guesses in. 9.
Keaton is my stalker.
7. 6.
It's like Fatal
5,
Attraction, only with politics.
4. 3.
I'm going to come home and find a boiled rabbit on my stove.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, the answer, 729 copies nationwide. Cori Bush sold 729 books in week 1.
Yeah, basically, the general public was not into it. They were not interested. They were not interested. The book buying public said,
Go home and get your fucking shine box. I'll go home and get your fucking shine box. I'll go home and get your fucking shine box.
You know, you got to kill the loop on that thing.
Here, I forgot to kill the loop. Sorry. That's supposed to be part of our pre-show routine, is to kill the loop. Here, now it's killed.
Boom. All right. So that didn't work out for her. Tulsi Gabbard, on the other hand, was the number 3 podcast right out of the gate, because she is, those cultural things that some people might like, some people might not, and we'll get into it in the next segment. She's where the public is. And this is why libs never see their losses coming. They just never see how out of touch they are with the general public. Tulsi Gabbard, a serving member of the military, articulating, kind of, at this point, it's kind of hard to nail her down, but let's say a kind of Sanders-ish economic program with an anti-war program, but very much willing to say things like Islamic terrorism and wanting closed borders. And you put all that together, now you just threw all of the polling numbers into a blender and you got the average American, because that's exactly where the average American is on the issues. He's exactly where they are. That's why I said the first time we talked about this, when she left the Democratic Party, that she will be a very credible contender for the Republican nomination. And I believe everyone's trying to figure this out. I believe that's where she's going with this.
Well, somebody put in the chat when we were playing our interview with the AOC protesters that they're a Trump supporter who would vote for Tulsi over Trump in a Republican primary.
That's what I've been saying.
And I think that that's true. I think that's true for a lot of people. I got to read this because it's a super chat, although I don't understand.
Like DeSantis is smart, but he has no charisma. He's not compelling. He's not compelling. He doesn't have that Gabbard skin.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely got the look. The other thing I'll say about Tulsi is I think she's a bit of a drama queen, in the sense that she, as a lot of military people will, really milks that. She really milks that for her love of country. But of course it works.
It works,
well,
especially if you're going to vie to be the first woman president. You'd almost have to be. I mean, it definitely is going to help. If you're a woman trying to win the Republican primary, and I said this when we talked about the first time, I think that helps her, with Republican primary voters. I think being a woman from the military, that's great, because they would love to own it. What bigger owning of the libs could they have than for them to be the ones that elect the first woman president? Not the Democrats, the Republicans. They would love it.
All right,
you just have to justify it to them. Go ahead.
Okay, let me just get to Zach's comment here because it's a super chat. Thank you, Zach, for that super chat. Our tip jar is out, by the way, folks. If you can put a few bucks in there, it would help us out quite a bit. Thank you so much. Keaton, if you set up a watch party in Patreon for RFK's new film and join to watch with us, I will go and join. I'm not really sure how to do that, but if you want to send me an email, just email us, dudissidents@gmail.com. Explain more of what you're talking about. We're not really allowed to talk about that here, or else we'll have the lights turned out. But I had to read it because you gave us $5, company policy. Got to read the super chats no matter what.
That's it.
Captain Obvious.
Never burn the people who give you the fucking super chats.
Exactly. In all seriousness, I will hear you out, but just send us an email. Let's keep that. Let's keep that on the Gmail server there. Captain Obvious, I can't find the exact comment now, but you mentioned, I recall as I live here in Hawaii, so you were there while that missile alert came in. It's funny, I actually, back when I was driving passengers, back when I was an Uber driver, I actually had a guy in my Uber who was there for that. And he said, everybody just thought they were going to die. And oddly enough, in his clique, he didn't really panic. He was with some friends, and they just kind of hung out. And that was that. All right, so we have somebody here. One of our patrons is calling in. And you're muted. If you would like to speak.
I really want somebody to do a documentary on how many people had sex they then regretted 10 minutes later during that episode.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he was the only one in the room.
He's the only one there. We had 11 minutes.
In the world.
Yeah, we had 11 minutes. If our patron caller
and he only
wants to
took
talk,
2.
just unmute.
That's the worst part.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Unmute your mic if you want to talk. If you do not, you're welcome to just stay there and listen. But if you would like to talk, you're welcome to just unmute your mic, and I will admit you to the room there. But no, look, I think Tulsi's success speaks volumes. And look, from a polling standpoint, I think she does represent the meat of the country. I think that's really not refutable. Now, that's why I don't agree with her on everything, because I don't represent the meat of the country, obviously. I am, out there. But no, I think she's got the finger of the pulse of where people are. And the fact that, look, all credit to her for, not going straight to the right-wing culture war shit in episode 2 of her show, which she very easily could have done, because those are definitely the olive branches that she is extending. Whether she is setting up for a presidential run in the Republican Party, that is speculation. But one of the reasons why we are speculating that, and why I think it is fair to speculate that, is because she did speak at CPAC, and she did appear with Matt Walsh in Nashville for their What is a Woman rally the other day. Like,
did she? I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was
there. She showed up for that?
She showed up for that, and so, she could have gone there for episode 2, right? I mean, she could have gone right there, and she didn't. She went right to the most urgent issue of the day, which is the issue that she has been most, steadfast on throughout the last, couple of decades, really. I think good on her for doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I watched it and I said, okay, you can make an argument against her. I don't know how you make an argument against her in contrast to the leading figures in our politics.
Right.
I really don't. I don't know. What, you'd rather have I would much rather have her than Biden. Like, how do you make it Kamala Harris? Like, what case are the Democrats going to make if theoretically she were the nominee?
Right.
Put the ick on her. I mean, that only works with your people who are never going to vote for her anyway.
Right. Exactly.
And that doesn't represent the majority of the country.
All right. So why don't we use that as an opportunity to segue into our final segment? Russell, why don't you set this up? We're going to play that video first, and then we'll go to some of your other exhibits there. But Go ahead.
So, Exhibit A.
Well, you sent me, Russell sends me 11 documents before each show. Okay, see if you can get these together in the next 20 minutes. I want to show this, then I want to show that, then I want to cut to this, then I want to play 2 minutes of that.
Yeah, it's a lot it's a lot of what my stage managers used to go through.
Oh my God, it would be hell being a stage manager for you doing a show.
Yes, if any of my former stage managers are watching this right now, they're gonna call in. Okay,
I'm thinking everybody should enter through the audience. Right at the last minute, you would announce that.
No, I mean I planned everything.
Right.
I'm a reasonable madman, but going through rehearsals with me was like that. Let's try this. Let's try that. Let's try that. Let's try that. All right. So in any case, so in Dearborn, Michigan, not coincidentally, given that it has an enormous Muslim population, something very predictable seems to be coming to a head. The white Christian parents and the brown Muslim parents seem to agree on the idea that they don't want sexually explicit material in the schools. Mind blown. Who could have seen that coming? So a father in Dearborn gave a speech that has gone viral that I think captures the feelings of a lot of the country. And if the Democrats do get crushed in the midterms, it is partly going to be because of fathers like this and their sentiments.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out. My name is Hassan Shami. I'm nothing but a concerned parent in Dearborn, Michigan. Guys, we want to make something clear, okay? We want to leave the politics out of this. If you're on Facebook, all you see is fear-mongering political rhetoric that this is book banning, censorship, homophobic. All it is protecting our children. We as concerned parents in Dearborn are not tied to the left, to the right when it comes to this issue. And we're not going to be used as pawns for any organization for their own agenda. We're here to protect our children. Do not fall for the political rhetoric on Facebook, on Instagram. Do not fall for the trap because that's what they want. They're trying to smear us. They're trying to control the narrative. They're trying to say this is homophobic. Listen, there's a book that was banned. It was called This Book is Gay. And I tell you, if the book was called This Book is Straight, we're still gonna go after it. Because it's teaching kids how to go online and have sexual intercourse with others on the internet. This is wrong. You do not expose kids to sexually explicit material. There's a poster right here to my right. There's a poster right here to my right that I had them cover up. I, as an adult, a 33-year-old adult, told them cover it up because I'm embarrassed to look at this. You think I want a 13-year-old to look at it? This is ridiculous. Any semi-decent human being, homosexual or heterosexual, knows when they look in the mirror that kids should not be exposed to this. Stop trying to control the rhetoric. Stop trying to make it as you guys are the victims, because this has nothing to do with it. We as parents who are raising our children are responsible for our children. Our schools will not indoctrinate our children. The progressive dogma from the top down that has public schools in a chokehold will not indoctrinate our children. People tell me, Huss, don't go up and speak. They're gonna they're gonna protest your businesses. You're gonna get fired from your job. I got 3 children. My purpose in this world is to protect my kids, and that's all I will do. And nobody will stop me. For everyone that came here, we expect to see you guys. And 5, for every person, bring 5 more with you on October 10th to the school board meeting. October 10th. We want the street filled. We want the park filled. We want the building filled. But listen, we are not here to work against the school board. We're not here to antagonize the school board. We're here to work with the school board because the school board are trustees that asked us to trust them with our kids. So they will listen to us because we elected them into office. And they will always listen to us. There should be hundreds more here, thousands more. Everybody had fun on WhatsApp and Facebook. Everybody was going back and forth and debating. Where are they now? Where are they now? Do you guys not have kids? You rely on a small army to take care of the issues? Until we mobilize and we get off our asses and we prioritize our kids, there will not be change. So we need everyone here. You get into your group chats, you talk to your friends, your family members, your aunts, your uncles, and you say you have a responsibility as a human to stand up for the children in Dearborn. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, so there's a lot going on here. Now, I gave you an element earlier on. I hope you did get that one. Pew Research did a poll of the entire Muslim world a way back on their opinions about various social issues and social causes. Now, this is what I call, and this comes up a lot with the left, a Kirk versus the computer moment. If we have any Star Trek fans out there, I always think of that when I think of the relationship of the left to the Muslim community, or the identitarian left, I should say, because you have all these people out there protesting, bring in more Muslims, trying to stop the Donald Trump Muslim ban. And okay, fair enough. Great. Okay. You do understand that the Muslim community is extremely conservative on things like homosexuality, on abortion. I mean, there's really no getting around it. Do you have that element, Keaton?
I do, boss. I do have that element. While I'm putting this up, what's your coffee order for tomorrow morning? You take it what? Cream?
Tomorrow it's soy macchiato.
Soy macchiato. Okay. Yeah. Now, do you take that with Splenda, or are you going sugar tomorrow?
No, I don't do Splenda ever since Breaking Bad. I'm afraid.
Okay, no Splenda. I'll make a note of that. All right, I gotta make sure.
I'm afraid somebody's gonna poison me.
Perfect. All right, I didn't want to forget about that. So, okay, here's the graphic. Oops, wait, is that the wrong graphic? No, that's the right graphic.
No, that's the right graphic. Okay, so let's see how the Muslim community feels about homosexuality. So, Southern Eastern Europe, 83% believe it's morally wrong. Central Asia, 85%. Southeast Asia, 95%, South Asia, 79%, Middle East and North Africa, 93%, and Sub-Saharan Africa, 91%. Now, this is what's really, really interesting. And also, sex outside of marriage, 67% Southern Eastern Europe, Central Asia, 85%, Southeast Asia, 94%, South Asia, 87%, Middle East, North Africa, 94%, and Sub-Saharan Africa, 78%. Now, this is something that really fascinates me about the left, because having these views, if you're a Christian, makes you a bigot, right? Like, this is the kind of thing they're going to come after you for if you're a Christian. If you're a Muslim, you're oppressed brown person, right? So at that point, having views that are completely antithetical to what a lot of the left or the identitarian left believes is acceptable. This is where this whole construct falls apart, where they want to believe in a world where you have this monolith of heterosexual white people fighting against everyone else. And yet, the further that they go in this direction, the further they go into picking fights about putting sexually explicit materials into public schools, the more non-white people become Republicans. There have been several articles already this season about how they're losing Latinos, who tend to be a culturally conservative community. And this is why I say Tulsi, she backed Ron DeSantis's, I forget what it's called, the Florida, came to be popularly known as the Don't Say Gay bill. But the core premise of that bill is no teaching of sex or gender subjects among children from kindergarten to third grade. Now, if you watch liberal media, they would give you the impression that there's a groundswell of horror at the idea that you wouldn't teach these subjects to kindergartners through third graders. I can't think of a more fucking batshit insane assertion than to assert that parents are up in arms, that there's a bill that their first grader can't be taught about sex and gender. That is a terrible side to be on. And this is why I keep saying, those of us on the economic left, we need to disown this portion of the left. We need to make it very clear that we are not with these people, because these are not popular positions. And why would they be? To me, the real question here is, why do we want the state involved in such intimate decisions of child rearing? How is this the business of the public schools? We have another element there, at the risk of another bit about coffee, showing something from Genderqueer, which is a book there's been all this debate about. Now, if you hear this from the left, you would think that Genderqueer is just this, book about gay issues, and this is crazy. These are just crazy right-wingers that don't want children exposed to any awareness of the LGBTQ community. Can we see that element from that book?
Sure thing.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we can't show it because we'll get demonetized, but you get the idea from the blurred out part. Now, it's not a question of whether this is a gay picture or a straight picture. You really want this in a school with children? When the left claims that this is the hill they want to die on, you know what most people say? You people are fucking crazy. Who do I vote for who's against this? Anyone. I don't care what else they believe. Who can I vote for who is going to keep this out of my child's school? Now, you would never get that impression if you watch MSNBC, if you watch CNN, because they're not going to show you that image. And we can't show you that image, but you got the idea. They're not going to show that to you. So you just get the impression from the way that they narrate it that this is just white, racist, Christian bigots who don't want their children to know about LGBTQ. They're not telling you, no, they don't want their fourth grader seeing graphic depictions of oral sex in the books in their school library. And it's not a question of whether it's straight, whether it's LGBTQ. That is up to the parents what they feel their children are ready for. And this is, look, as the senior member of the senatorial duo here, I'm gonna say, I'm old enough to remember when the whole fight was to stop the right from imposing its views about sex and sexuality on society. We've gone full circle now. Now it is a very extreme fringe, what ultimately is a fringe minority on the left that is overrepresented in media and academia and in elite circles of society in the professional managerial class, imposing what is essentially a kind of liberal religious view on sex, sexuality, and gender on society. And look, if you're going to do that in your home, if you want to do that, if that's how you want to raise your kids, hey, man, we have Hasidics out here in Brooklyn who are not teaching kids grammar, right? That's actually supposed to be illegal. But nobody wants to get into the religion versus the state kind of thing, so they let them raise the kids that way. We don't go bother Jehovah's Witnesses. We don't go bother people for raising. We don't bother Scientologists. We don't bother people for raising their kids in all kinds of crazy shit, right? So if you want to raise your kid in any way that you want in regards to gender and sexuality, I mean, as long as you're not molesting them, that's really your business. It's not the state's business. It is not the business of schools. If we're going to tolerate any kind of religious belief, how are you going to start coming, as some Democratic districts have, and saying you want to prosecute parents that don't transition their children? What business is that of the state? You'll tolerate Scientology? You're not going to come take kids out of a Scientologist home, but you're going to take kids out of a home where they have traditional views on gender? So parents are terrified of this. And the idea, and this is what really breaks the liberal brain, when you see Christians and Muslims together like this, it blows away their entire premise that there is this white heteropatriarchy oppressing everybody else. Because if you keep trying to push books like that into schools. And the one that he mentions, this book is gay. He specifically mentions it. I've seen the page. I can't find an image online, but I have actually seen it. It actually gives instructions for how to hook up for sex online. It being gay is really beside the point. What place does that have in a school library, which is a public state-run institution? You are going too far into the prerogative of parents on how to raise their child. This is becoming the state forcing a view on sex and sexuality onto parents that they don't necessarily want their children exposed to, and they have every right. You are there to teach history, reading, math, maybe some sociology, psychology. You are not there to start getting into these deeply personal family matters. And on the political level, I really can't think of anything you could do to try harder to lose an election than to be the party associated with these views. It always reminds me of the producers. Springtime for Hitler, like that. What more could you do to try to turn the public off than to very insistently push the idea that we need to expose children to graphic sexual material in our public schools? Like how much further could you go to try to alienate people than that? I think this father represents a feeling that is underrepresented in the media, certainly not represented on Twitter, because anyone who says things like this on Twitter will get kicked off Twitter. But that's where the country really is. And that's a big part of why Tulsi's podcast opened at number 3, because she came out in support of those views.
Well, that was very, very well done, sir. We didn't even use all of your graphics. We didn't use the New York Times poll yet or the Axios poll yet. Maybe we will in a second. But, I don't have an argument against anything that you said there.
I don't want to make you feel like a schlepper. You feel like a schlepper. I'm gonna. So I backed off on the graphics.
Look,
I don't want to make you. I know you take a lot of shit at work.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you get there with the food late. They spit at you. They pick you. I know you gotta let it. You come here. This is like where you can assert some power.
Right.
And then I start telling you to pull up graphics. You're having a flashback to the guy who spit at you because the pizza was 20 minutes
right.
late.
Yeah. Oh no. Well, no. I mean, I don't deal with people at work. No contact deliveries because of that. Beautiful thing. I just take pictures of the food on people's porch. I leave it. That's it.
All right.
But anyway, no, that was all very, very well done and very well said. There's another element to this that I think, perhaps is at play here. Just as capitalism creates compounding crises that are then very difficult to reverse, so does decline in institutional faith, right? So does decline in the faith of institutions. So capitalism creates these compounding crises in the sense that austerity begets more austerity, right? Because the fewer, the less a person has, the more they try and hang on to what little they have, right? And the less they have to ante up to make an investment in trying to overhaul the system so that maybe down the road they'll have more, right? Like, okay, person's barely getting by. They then cling to what little money they have in their pocket. They don't want to pay more taxes to maybe get universal health care because they can't spare it, right? They're very protective of what they got.
Right.
Same dynamic is at play here when we talk about the decline in institutional faith, right? Institutional rot begets further institutional rot, because when you have people's standards of living decline, largely because of all of these institutional failures that they have lived through over the past several decades now, they become more protective of what they have. In this case, in the case of that dad, his family, his kids.
Right.
The focus turns inward to the thing you have, the thing that's yours, the thing you can control, the things that gives you meaning. He gave a quote there. I wrote it down next to your coffee order. He says, my purpose in this world is to protect my kids. That's his purpose in this world. Part of the reason why he feels that, look, every parent feels that to a very large extent. Yeah. But that is multiplied tenfold when you feel no purpose anywhere else.
Right.
because you are
Right.
living in a collapsing society. There is
Right.
no other means to feel that purpose, to feel that sense of mission, right? And so you look inward. And so as you turn that focus inward, you become much more resistant to entrust these institutions that have already failed you in X, Y, Z other ways. You are become very reluctant to entrust them with the thing that's most precious to you, which is your family.
Well, especially
Your
when they're
child.
when they're giving your child a book with somebody sucking a cock.
Well, right.
You know,
But
that doesn't instill one with confidence in the institution, does it?
no, well, no, certainly not. Certainly not. But what you have here is a situation where you have people in Michigan, in the heartland, in the Rust Belt, right? People's qualities of life, whether you're a working class brown person or a working class white person in Michigan, hit very, very hard. I drove through Michigan in May of 2009. It was a wasteland. Ohio, Indiana, Western Pennsylvania, same thing. When you have faith in faith in our institutions at this kind of low, people are going to cling, as Obama once used that. Oh, they're clinging to God. They're clinging to guns. They cling to
Right.
what they
Right.
have because it's
Right.
all they do have.
Right.
It's all they have because the society is crumbling around them.
Right.
And so they are not going to entrust public schools with the responsibility that's theirs. That's theirs. Now, they
Right.
were never inclined to do that, but now they're
Right.
especially not
Right.
inclined to
Right.
do that. In the 90s, we had sex ed. I remember learning sex ed. I think it was 5th or 6th grade, right? And, you know, it's always a touchy
Yeah.
thing. It's a little
Sixth-
embarrassing,
sixth
right?
grade.
You know,
Sixth
right,
grade.
whatever.
Yeah.
But there wasn't this level of suspicion about it, partly because, like I said, the books weren't as graphic. So on that
They
very
weren't
surface
doing-
level,
they weren't doing that.
Right, they weren't doing that. But also, people back then trusted that the teachers were there for a reason. They were there because they belong there. They were pros. We're going to entrust you with a job to do. We're going to trust that you will do the job. People trusted that. They trusted that process. They trusted that the system worked the way it worked for a reason, for a good reason, and they were part of it, right? Which is why, look, in a perfect world, no, parents really shouldn't have a say in the curriculum of public schools because in a perfect world, you leave that to the teachers, right? Right? Theoretically, they're supposed to be the pros. They're supposed to know what the hell they're doing. I don't hire a contractor to build a shed and then go out there and say, you know, I think you should hammer that nail over here, not over here. No, that's their realm. That's their thing. There is not that trust anymore. There is not that
Well,
trust
it's also
anymore.
because they politicized education, because
Yeah.
they brought all of this into education, and parents are reacting. Look, man, I'm not, you know, I'm not like an uptight guy. I wouldn't want the schools giving that to my kid. That'll be up to me if I feel my kid is ready for that. That's not for the state to decide something like that, because you're not just talking sex ed. Okay, these are the biology of reproduction. That's not what you're talking about. You're talking about things that are ideological, things that represent a certain way of looking at sex. Can you honestly look around at look? You look at that book is gay. Had nothing to do with the sexual orientation of the book. The philosophical orientation of the book assumes that the sexual revolution was a good idea. You can't assume that. Look around at the world we live in. Are people happier than they were before the sexual revolution? Can you really say that? We live in a world where people are depressed, they're medicated, they're lonely, families are broken. And yes, you can blame that on a lot of things. But some people, including former feminists, have argued, you know what, this was all a terrible mistake. And can you necessarily say that they're wrong to the point that you feel that you can just assume that presenting sexuality and human sexual behavior from the point of view that promiscuity and non-monogamous sex is just the default? Because that's the point of view of a book like that, telling you, yeah, this is how you go online and meet somebody. Forget about whether it's gay or straight. What business does the state have to impart that point of view?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's also well said. And this is coming from a guy who fucked a Kennedy, right? So,
I did. She had the overbite too. It was pretty interesting. No, she did. She had that Kennedy mouth. Okay, so this I want to show. Actually, now that we brought this up, at the risk of making you feel like a barista again, can you show the Disney graphic, because this to me is the most revealing thing. Now, polls that they've done on how people feel about the Don't Say Gay bill very consistently show majorities against it. There was like an outlier poll where a slim majority was for it, but everything else I saw was pretty overwhelmingly against it. I think it's worse than that, though, because a lot of people in this cultural climate are not really going to be comfortable necessarily. They're afraid to lose their job. They don't want to be honest. But you know where you can see it? In the polling on Disney after they came out against the Don't Say Gay bill. So look what happened to Disney after that. Disney went from 37 rank in trusted companies down to 65, dropped from 41 to 95 in ethics, from 11 in vision to 94, from 47 in culture to 93. This is out of a 100 ranking, by the way. Why would that be? This poll was taken right after they took their stand against that bill in Florida. That producing cartoons with men needing tampons. Do you really think most parents want that? There's a very small percentage of very libby, very PMC parents who take great pride in watching that with their children, and they feel very virtuous that they're exposing their children to those ideas. That's not most people. Most people want fucking, Pinocchio and Snow White, and they don't want you getting into that kind of shit when you're talking about their children. If there's anything people should have learned from the election of Youngkin, a guy with the charisma of a jar of peanut butter, it's that these issues are extremely powerful because you are messing with parents' protective instincts. That is a very dangerous thing to set yourself against politically. You're giving the Republicans the lifeline that they would not have in the wake of Roe if you were not adopting such an unpopular social agenda. And this is why the more unpopular their social agenda goes, the more pro-censorship they get, because the less tenable their arguments are in a world of open debate. They can't afford debate. They have to shut down debate. They have to shut down groups like Gays Against Groomers, because they cannot expose people to the idea that there are a lot of gay people who don't like these ideas. They have to ban them from Twitter. They have to ban them from the internet, because they do not want to have that debate. They do not want to have that conversation, because they know it will not favor them. They will lose if they open that door and allow an open discussion.
All right, let's put the New York Times poll up here. Do you support or oppose allowing public school teachers to provide classroom instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity to children in elementary school grades 1 to 5? 70% oppose, 27% support. And do you support or oppose allowing public school teachers to provide classroom instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity to children in middle school or junior high, grades 6 to 8? All right, now this goes back to what I was saying, because I am a child of the 90s, so I took sex ed in elementary school, 5th or 6th grade, something like that. And they even had this thing where parents could take their kids to like an assembly on it so that parents could be there with the kids to learn it. But that was in 5th or 6th grade. Okay? 54% of parents did not oppose to this at that time. All right? It was not controversial at that time. Now, if you look at this poll here, 54% oppose sex ed, basically, for grades 6 to 8. What that tells you is that people do not trust public education as an institution anymore, because grade 6 to 8 is when you would normally learn about
this. That's I added it in 6th grade.
Yeah. Right. And they don't even trust you with that, because look, and this is what, I mean, if we really want to do a call back here, when Jose Vega talked about the lack of hope, which drove him into the, LaRouche movement. He says, look, people have no hope, right? Khalif Browder gets out of jail. He ends up killing himself because he just can't function here. There's no hope. People feel no purpose now. There is no sense of what the future holds. And there is no real hope for a bright future. And so if you're a parent, and I can speak not as an if, because I have twin 3.5-year-olds, I don't know what the future holds. People ask, well, given your politics, given your persuasion, how do you feel about being a parent right now? Given how I feel about the direction that
like
things are
I
heading.
asked.
Right, Russell asks. And the answer is like, look, would you rather try and pass the baton or not? Life is a life. Now they're getting a life. They're getting they have a ticket to the show now. And what I can tell you is that in a world as uncertain as this, and as dark as this, and as hopeless as this, every moment of joy that they get, every moment of innocence that they enjoy, is a win. Every time they're playing with their little dinosaur toys or watching a TV show that they like or laughing around, horsing around in the backyard, that's a win. And all you can really do now is hope to rack up as many of those wins as you can until all of our times are up. And I feel very protective of that, right? You don't want people taking that shit away. You don't want to send them to school and wonder if a wrench is going to be thrown into that somehow.
Right.
Especially
Right.
when the issues are that
Right.
sensitive. Like,
Right.
let us handle that with them.
Right.
And we'll work it out. And we know we have their best interests at heart. People don't trust that these institutions have people's best interests at heart. Why would they anymore? So they're
Right.
getting just increasingly protective, right? And like all this focus just turns inward. That's why there's all this focus now on God and the family, right? It's if you like, I've made this point in past shows. Think of it as a dying animal, right? If the society is an animal and the society is in decline, what does a living thing do when it knows it can't fight anymore? When it knows now it's just playing out the end game, it's living out its last moments. It finds a place to be alone. It finds a place to be by itself, and just find some peace in the final moments. And I think that's where America is now. I think that's where I think the MAGA movement is a certain expression of that death drive. It's almost like, if you know the Midnight Mass show, if you everybody's watched that show, at the end of the show, or like the last episode, most of the people on the island have been bit by whatever the fucking thing was, and they know that when the sun comes up, it's all over for them. And they kind of just are resigned to that.
Right.
They live out that last night kind of in peace, kind of knowing, okay, it's going to end tomorrow. There's nothing we could do about it. Let's just try and find some solace in these last moments. And the MAGA people are like the weird cult lady who freaks out and tries to dig her way under the sand, right? Right? That's like the MAGA movement, right? Oh, we could do something, right? We can maybe use, but they can't.
All right.
It's hopeless.
I want to kick back from Netflix on this episode.
Well, I'm just saying, like, that's what it strikes me as. But it's all the same thing. It's all people who know we're doomed. They're just different reactions to that, right? And either way, the focus in these moments kind of comes inward. And I feel like that's where that's why the culture war shit is hitting so hard now, because it's all people have. All people have now is their culture. All they have is their faith. All they have is their family. That's it. Every other political battle has already been fought. And some you won, most you lost, and we're going one way the wrong way. And there's nothing you could do about it except hang on to the people you love and the things you love and the hobbies you love and the culture you love and the faith you love. And that's it. And you just ride it out.
Right. And you could not make a worse political choice after you took everything from these people economically than to come after them culturally. And that's all they do. Of course they fucking hate you. How could they not hate you? You hate them. Right? They're the MAGAs. They're right. And this is, everyone should read it's a great book, White Trash, that goes back to from the beginning of the country. You had the indentured servants. There's always been this white underclass that got shit on by the elites. Only now the Democrats are those elites shitting on the poor white people. Like that,
Right.
you know, there's a very old thing in this country. There's nothing new about this. It's this very aristocratic disdain ultimately for the poor.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I interviewed there's a writer named River Page who wrote an article that had to do with that, and he referenced that book as well. But yeah, that's absolutely true. All right, Zach, you gave us a super chat a while back, and it had something to do with the Patreon meeting that you wanted me to join. Do you want me to join it now? I can't join it now. We're doing this now, but
We're doing our show.
It's free at the moment. Share screen to Patreon group. I'm not sure what you mean. Like I said, if you shoot me an email, I'll look into it. If I could, what do you want me to do? You want me to set up a watch party in Patreon? I'm not sure what you're asking me there. But like I said, thank you for the $1.99. You're allowed to confuse us if you pay us.
I have not been impressed with the take from this crowd. This was for this. I didn't have to come out and busk.
Oh, you mean the take? You mean the shkarol?
You cheap fucks!
Yeah. I thought you meant the takes, like their response. I think people were very responsive to your monologue there. I think it went over well.
I think it did. I think it did because it's what I mean. That's fucking reality, man. It's so obvious. It's ridiculous. When I watch what's going on with Dylan Mulvaney, I mean, really, one day we're going to look back on this and say, what the fuck were people thinking? For those of you not familiar, Dylan Mulvaney has been a girl for all of, I think, 3 months and has an ongoing TikTok where it's day 1 is a girl, day 2 is a girl. She's been able to parlay this into being chosen as the representative woman in a Forbes Woman conference. Ulta recruited her to have a talk with their hairstylist about what girlhood means. She just met with Biden. She just got a meeting with Biden. Now, listen, if you look at that and what you see is this is inspiring, you just shouldn't think about politics because you don't understand them. You don't understand them. I cannot overstate how damaging these things are to any left movement to have that associated with us.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, I'm following a chat thread here between Captain Obvious and Bill Bradley, but I can't read the whole thing. They're having an argument that I find interesting.
Reality is not overrated, Kenneth. It is underrated.
Catch up to that on my own time.
Yes, it's not overrated. It's underrated. No one wants to live in it anymore. It's becoming like fucking what's the book about the Ready Player One? That's what it's becoming.
Virtuoso is giving me play-by-play updates for the Yankees score. The Yankees are done, man. The Yankees, they're down 3-0. They don't have people. So, the Red Sox did it in 2004. The Red Sox had everything break their way. They had a few star players who were hitting. The Yankees got nothing. The Yankees struck out, 41 times in 3 games? Got nothing. They got nothing. It's done. I got to root for the Phillies now. Alrighty, guys. Well, I think that's pretty much everything. Bill Bradley and Captain Obvious seem to be arguing about a correlation between the strength of an economy and the strength of a family. Look, I mean, look, a family is an economic engine. A family is an economic unit. That's what it's designed to be, right? All right, I can't. All right, listen, this is awkward because I thank you for the donations, but I still don't know what you're talking about. You seemed confused on the concept of watch party. I tried to give you specific.
That's because he is. That's because he is.
Yeah,
it's not
you
a
agree.
coincidence.
You set up. I'll join Patreon. Oh, if I set up a watch party, then you'll join Patreon. Okay.
Well,
understood.
we're talking to 2 girls down in Mexico and a donkey, and we're planning on setting something up for that.
Now I understand. All right. Okay, now I get it. Well, thank you, Zach. I appreciate that. Sorry, I did not understand what you were saying.
That's the Halloween plan.
Okay, yeah, right. Exactly. Oh yeah. By the way, I want to plug this. I feel confident plugging this, even though he's Yeah, all right. Let's go out on a limb. I mean, we already created the event. He asked me to send him the materials. I haven't heard back from him yet, but he seemed like this was a go. It looks like we're going to be interviewing Shahid Buttar tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So tune into that if you can. That'll be awesome. We're both big fans of his, and so that'll be fun.
And on the assumption that Pelosi or her people will see it, I am going to dig up every filthy thing I know about their inside stock trading for that episode.
Yeah, it's good. He just wrote a Substack article talking about how the Democrats' various corruption, shenanigans, and their betrayals to voters are likely to doom them, and I think he's right about that. We talked a lot about all these different sort of, culture war things tonight, just because they are relevant going into a midterm that's 2 weeks out. Even the Michigan governor's race is getting closer. It's interesting because, and this was a point that
the Michigan governor's race, and here in New York, this guy nobody ever heard of. What's his name? Springer?
Yeah, Zeldin is closing. He's closing on Hochul.
No, the last poll, he was actually a little bit ahead. I mean, obviously, margin of error. Yeah,
wow.
0.3%.
Wow.
He was actually ahead of her in the last poll.
That's insane. Yeah,
Michael Moore, he keeps blasting out these emails every day. I haven't read it yet. The Guardian just did an article about that. Is Michael Moore right? There could be this hidden women's vote. It's seeming less and less that way. It's if in New York State, that fucking guy, Zeldin, is pulling out ahead, that's not a good sign in New York in the wake of Roe v. Wade.
No, absolutely. Look, we'll talk about this. Obviously, we have a lot of midterm programming coming up. We're going to be live pretty much every night heading up to the midterms.
I'm going to be the remote Buffalo correspondent for that.
Right. Russell
I'm going to see if I can hook anything up there, yeah.
Yeah, with the Starbucks workers, absolutely.
I'm shuffling up to Buffalo.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a great idea. But one thing that, I think just goes to my point that I was trying to make there that I meant to bring up earlier, perhaps I'll edit it in sneakily into the segment, is that you see a poll there. The first poll that we put up, Muslims have very, very socially conservative views. They've had socially conservative views since 2022 minus, 610? So 1,412 years, if my math is right. All right. That's not new that Muslims have had conservative social views.
Kind of built into the whole Muslim
right.
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Despite their conservative social views, they have tended to vote overwhelmingly Democratic. And I think the reason they vote overwhelmingly Democratic is because they sensed a material interest in doing so. So they were willing to, look the other way on a lot of these socially liberal views that Democrats put forward because they felt there was an incentive there, right? They felt that they had something worth hanging on to that they either wanted to keep or maybe their lot in life could get a little bit better, with X or Y government program to help them or, whatever, when I say government program to help them, I don't mean welfare. I mean public education.
Right,
I mean investment in infrastructure.
Right.
The Democrats invest in infrastructure, which is there to bolster you, which is there to help you. Same thing with the Latino vote. That is a very socially conservative culture as well. But they tended to vote Democrat all these years because they sensed a material incentive. However, now that those battles have just been either fought to a stalemate, a depressing, miserable stalemate, or they've been lost entirely to the neoliberal order, that material incentive ain't there anymore. Right. And when that material incentive ain't there anymore, what do? They revert back to culture. So now all of a sudden, those opinions that these parents feel about sexuality and homosexuality, right? All of a sudden, that might animate them to vote now in a different way than it did.
In a different way.
Because the material battle's already been lost. The ship is already sinking.
I've been making this argument since I was campaigning for Bernie in 2016. You people are culturally fucking repulsive, so you better give people some money. because
Right.
that's the only way they're going to vote for you. They hate you. They hate you. You're disgusting. You're repulsive. You're repulsive. No reasonable person can stand to be in the same room with you fucking people. So you would better give them health care. You would better give them education. You give them that, in the end, material concerns trump those things. They will vote for you if you give them those things. Otherwise, why would they not vote Republican? They don't like you. Why are they going to vote for the Hillarys? Why are they going to vote for the Schumers? Why would they vote for these people unless they put something in their pocket?
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll have more to say about that, obviously, in the next couple of weeks. We have some midterm programming coming up. But this was a fun stream, guys. Thank you very much for watching. You can support the show at patreon.com/do-dissidents. Please, at the very least, subscribe to this channel while you are here if you have not already done so. Let me check our sub count here while I'm on here. I'll see if we bagged any over the course of this thing here. I think we gained one and lost one. Somebody.
I have a little bit of my money in crypto, but I consider it a lottery play. I'm not buying it. I've always felt that crypto is it's worth what people think it's worth. There's no underlying value to it. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any value. It's not like a company that there are assets, there's IP, there's nothing there. It's monopoly money, man. If you think it's worth something, it is. If you don't, it's not. It really depends on sentiment. The only thing I would give crypto is now you got too many big players like Mark Cuban in it to let it just completely collapse. Those guys will do a lot to prop it up to keep it from collapsing. That's it. And in terms of what it is, it has no value.
All right, everybody. Well, that about wraps us for this evening. I hear the Yankees started in a delay, so maybe I'll go watch the rest of their season here. But thank you guys very much. We're going to be, like I said, interviewing Shahid Buttar tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern. Tune into that. That should be a really fun one. He's a very smart guy and a very dynamic personality. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much. Make sure you like this stream. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. And be safe. Be well. We'll see you guys next time.
Please clap.